Angelo Henderson is a minister, journalist, and radio host who is trying to build bridges between the neighborhoods and law enforcement to stop the murders in Detroit. We welcome Angelo to Am I Right? Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Angelo, good to have you. Now, you're one of the co-founders of Detroit 300,
right.
A group that is basically just fed up with violence in
right.
Detroit, wants to do something about it. We had a very ugly month in the city in terms of murders, 27 murders in 30 days, including the very tragic slaying of a 12-year-old girl on the front porch of her own home. When you look at how you get your arms around violence and how you start to make a difference, what is the answer?
Well, I mean, I think that you have to start, you have to remind people that they have an ability to get involved. We can't no longer sit beside and just kind of watch this thing and say, how bad is it? It's time for neighborhoods and block clubs and associations to organize and fight this. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to call in Detroit 300 the men to step up in the community and, you know, and protect the women and the children and the elderly. There used to be a season where seniors were respected. You know, they were sort of untouchables, even in the crime element. But now it's just totally different, and that's what we're noticing, the intense violence, you all. For example, there was a guy named Mr. Caldwell, 63 years old, catching the bus. His car broke down. He lived in Highland Park, caught the bus, was going to catch the bus, going to work. He was robbed in a playground, and he was forced to come back by that robber to his home, where his wife was who's older than he is, and he kept screaming in there, "Please don't hurt my wife," and she's recovering from cancer. He was so concerned about his wife when they got in the home that he wrestled with him, ended up getting shot right in front of her. And not only did the guy do that, he took Miss Caldwell's purse. We honored her. Detroit 300 honored him last night as saying this is a guy who tried to keep his family safe, protect his wife, which is what we're supposed to do as a community. But we don't know each other's. You know, we don't know our neighbors. There used to be a time when you run out of sugar, you go next door. You know, it was a sense of love, and now we've become so alienated. We think about just our workplace. We go home, we come in our tunnel, and we leave.
But, you know, I love de Tocqueville, who came to America, as you know, and wrote Democracy in America in the early 1800s and said that community was one of the strengths of democracy that he saw, and that sense of community. We've lost it.
Yeah.
And how do we rebuild that sense of community, that sense of interdependence, that sense that, you know, whether you're okay makes me okay?
Right. That you don't have to have a position in order to matter. We're just regular guys who work various jobs on the street, you know, who have families, who care about the community. We're supported by a number of women. We don't have necessarily titles. We're not elected to anything. We're just regular folks. Empowering regular people to say, you know what, we have a standard. You're not going to do this around here. We're hearing more from neighborhoods who say, look, Angelo, they came around my neighborhood and we got out there. We said, look, you're not going to do this in our neighborhood. Which is a sense of empowerment. People feeling like they can really fight this.
Now, you had 1,000 people out at the Northwest Activity Center last night.
Right.
Frustrated people, I imagine, people who are looking for answers. That's a good sign that people are starting to engage. But when they're looking at the things they can do beyond, you know, what they can do themselves in their own neighborhood, what should we be doing as a city in terms of law enforcement and in terms of our culture?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to really reinvest in the block club concept. You know, already the police to provide the signs. In some cases, some of those dollars have been cut. We've got to really emphasize the proactive stuff, the mentoring programs for the kids. We have to change. It has to be a culture change. Also, there has to be a feeling amongst the people that they really, that when you call the police, once again, that they have the resources. We've got to make public safety like one of the #1 values from a funding standpoint. You know, if people don't feel safe, you know, who's going to move here? It's the same way with schools, but if you can't dial 911 and really expect to get someone, here we had the city council president's brother had a heart attack in the precinct, and the precinct officers had to take him in a car to the hospital because the ambulance was going to take too long. You know what I mean? At some point we have to say enough is enough in a lot of arenas.
But Angelo, law enforcement's part of it. We've talked before about the personal responsibility
absolutely.
issue of this. And we've got a lot of kids who are being raised up in homes where they're not getting the value education that they need. And a lot of folks who think the first answer is to pop off shooting with a gun.
Without a doubt. And you wrote a column, really controversial column in some cases, where you asked the question, is black life, do African Americans, for example, in Detroit, value black life the way they're killing each other? It really evoked a lot of conversation on my radio show. Your Voice on News Talk 1200 WCHB. There is, I felt like there was it's not like a lack of care, but there's a numbness. After you've been beaten so long, in your own psychic, you almost start to expect it. Does it make it right to be abused? No. But at some point, you just become accustomed to the pain. And I think that's what you're noticing more. It's not a lack of care. It's just a feeling of helplessness in some cases and despair. Once again, you're talking about the perpetrators not having a lot of hope. When you don't have education, you don't have ability. Your tomorrow is not going to be any different than your today. Generationally, you're not changing. You're worse off than your parents were. And quite frankly, you probably don't even have parents. You probably have a mother in many cases. When you look at that and you say, well, why should I try? Why should I sacrifice? To do what? I can't get a job that's going to make the kind of money that's going to change my reality. So, so that's the component. We have to fix that.
How do we, one of the things that Nolan and others have heard me talk about was when I was with a group of black teenagers, and they were talking about what kind of coffin they wanted to be buried in. And their sense of how long they were going to live wasn't very long.
Right.
I mean, they figured something was going to happen to them, or they were going to be shot, and they were part of a gang. It so stunned me. And it realized what had happened to young black men in this country.
Right.
Most of them think they're going to go to jail.
Right.
I mean, I'm not numb, and I'm not going to get so careless that I don't care. But how do we get everybody to understand what's happening to our young people, and how do we change that?
Well, the change has to come, I think, in really providing more opportunities. You know, the automotive plants, used to be a way out, Debbie. People could go there, make great money, have things like a home, a nice car, flat screen televisions. You know what I mean? They really felt like they were progressing in life. We have to figure out a way, even in this green economy and technology, the age of technology, to find ways to give them an entryway. Whether it's some sort of job in the IT, we need to identify an entry point for these kids who will not necessarily go to college, but yet so their life, there's more to life than some of the other social programs. I mean, we got to say that, look, life is better on this side than this, and this is how you get there.
Now, the city has suffered from a breakdown in schools as well.
Right.
A lot of these kids, we know we have around a 50% or greater dropout rate. Once these kids drop out of school, I mean, the chance that they're going to end up in the criminal system goes up exponentially.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. But once again, that's a major problem. First of all, the courts have to do also a better job, because oftentimes, even with the Detroit 300, we catch the criminal, and before we can get them a process, they're back out on the street again. I mean, so I think that we really have to start watching the judges next.
But we've got to do an intervention.
We do.
So
Before then, I'm with you.
We're with you. How do we get them to understand that in education, so that it can be a key? And one of the things that makes me the most nuts is when you get people who say the parents should be doing, and you don't understand there isn't a parent in the home. There isn't that tool that we all think that should be there. So how do we substitute for what they don't have to show them people care and give them opportunity, teach them how to hope?
I think after-school programs would work. I think Boys and Girls Clubs kinds of things. I think providing some funds for churches to have some of these programs after school, tutoring programs, homework clubs, where you can provide the mentoring as well as the support system and the examples, those kind of things would make a difference. Absolutely, in the neighborhoods, and also not creating, but there's entities in the neighborhoods already who need some support.
And of course, the current budget meltdown is going to probably steal resources from that. But Angelo, before we go, you all at Detroit 300 have put together a little booklet to help people take back their neighborhoods, is
Right.
what
Once
you
again,
call it.
we produced a book called How to Secure and Take Back Your Neighborhood by the Detroit 300 and Detective Brian Fountain, where we've really tried to put some real examples on do's and don'ts. You know, when you're at fast food places, some of the top dangerous areas, how to keep your home safe, how to keep your physically, how to avoid rapes and carjackings. Once again, we have to equip people with the information because the police, Detroit 300, we can't be in all places at the same time.
And how do they get the book?
By going to our website. It is thedetroit300.com.
Okay.
They'll find
We'll
it.
get
Go
it,
to
put it up on our
Detroit. We
website.
will be online.
All right, exactly.
Well, we want to say thank you to the Reverend Angelo Henderson, and thanks to you for joining us. I'm Nolan Finley.
And I'm Debbie Dingle. We'll see you next time.